What? It's another off-topic Tuesday. Ah, man, it's been a week for me, and it's only started. It just got started. I can't take it. But today is going to be a good day. We have back in the house Rachel Hensley. She is going to be talking to us about empathy blockers, and we're going to have a nice discussion. So I hope that you will tune in. If you don't tune in live, I hope you watch the replay. But I'm about to get it started. All right. Off topic Tuesday. I hope y'all ready for this. Because this is a topic that needs to be discussed. Not just once, twice, but 3 times a lady or a man, huh? Whichever you want to be. And so we're gonna do this. So let me bring on to the podcast Rachel Hensley. What's up?
What up, Lily? Vibing.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again.
Hey, anytime. We can make this a regular thing.
I'm hoping, yes.
You know. So, empathy blockers, huh?
Empathy blockers.
Man.
First, empathy. First.
Yeah, empathy, right. We don't want the blockers first. But before we actually get into the actual discussion, what made you want to discuss this in particular?
We're coming off the cusp of how to fight right.
Okay.
Right? So, yay, we talked about how to fight right and not, really hurt each other too much, not to over damage our relationship. What do we do to make sure that we're nurturing?
Okay.
And so I often think of empathy, which gets confused with sympathy a lot, and how empathy blockers are interesting because they oftentimes have good intentions.
Right.
So it's just one of those subjects that I was like, a lot of people just don't know. And if you don't know any better, you can't do any better.
Right.
So I just thought it was important to know, hey, you might be unintentionally creating more of a disconnection than you really are intending to.
Yeah, it's not always a malicious thing.
Right. Most of the time, empathy blockers, I will say, have good intentions behind them.
Yeah, they just don't know how to direct those intentions correctly. Oh, man.
So, yeah.
So, let's go back to the snowstorm.
Yes, let's.
Because I know it was a lot of empathy blocking going there with that.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah. I feel like we've kind of gotten to a time where people have to be a little bit more careful about jokes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Laughter is like so important. It's so important, and it's really important to be able to laugh at yourselves, to laugh at your group, to laugh at your mistakes, your flaws, whatever. It's really important to be able to laugh at that and not take things too seriously. And then there are things that really need to be taken seriously. And I feel like those lines are kind of getting blurred these days.
Yeah. And then, also with not joking all the time about every little thing, then you had that thin line between oversensitive.
Now, actually, jumping ahead a little bit, telling someone they're being oversensitive is actually a form of empathy blocking.
Right.
Right? It's diagnosing,
Right.
So the snowstorm, okay, in all fairness, I live in Texas. I grew up in Texas. I've always been in Texas. I understand how freaked out we get at things that just don't occur here often, right?
Right, which is warranted.
we make jokes ourselves about a couple of drops of snow, 2 snowflakes fall from the sky and we cancel everything, school's closed, nobody leave their house, it's too dangerous.
Right.
That's the joking. That's different than, people being stuck inside of their homes, freezing, not having water, not having power for days. And I just feel like that's a pretty obvious time not to make jokes about it.
Right.
Right. And myself personally, instead of going and attacking the people who I felt like, were throwing shade at people in Texas who might have been struggling, like empathy blocking, so to speak, I chose to respond with fun and empathy because I know that people learn better when they're interested, and when they're having fun, they're more interested.
Right.
So deliver a good message, right? An important message, but try to not make it too attacking, because then people get defensive. And those are the 4 horsemen. And we talked about that last time. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that.
Right.
We're not trying to do that. Yeah.
Right. So what is empathy?
Okay, so really important to differentiate between empathy and sympathy.
Right.
A lot of people think that empathy is feeling sorry for someone. And that's not exactly, that's sympathy. That's the basic premise behind sympathy, is I feel bad for you. No, like there's a whole section of cards, when you walk into the drugstore, sympathy, I'm sorry for your loss, my comfort for your loss. That's sympathy, right? That usually goes with loss. Empathy is more about us connecting as social creatures. It's about, there's 2 different types of empathy. There's cognitive empathy and there's affective empathy. So there's a way to think about feeling, and then there's a way to feel feeling. Mm-hmm. So cognitive empathy is like, I can rationalize, I can reason, I can understand, giving the information to this situation, what this would probably feel like, right? I can rationally think it probably sucks for your house to burn down. I don't have to go through that experience. I've never had a house burn down, thankfully. I can still rationally understand what it must feel like to lose your home in a fire.
Right, right.
Affective empathy is more of a connection of the emotion physiologically. You feel the emotion. And this is a lot more common than the way I'm describing it. Makes it sound like some kind of superpower. But this is natural to human beings, right? We share empathy. We connect through empathy oftentimes. Think about when you're talking to your friends and they're starting to get heated, talking about what she said the other day, and I can't believe she would do this. And then your face, see how your face is starting to match my face? That's empathy. I wasn't even really feeling that. You know what I mean? But we could have made ourselves feel that simply by me pretending to be angry, you matching my facial expressions. We start feeding off of each other. That's the emotional connection of empathy.
Okay. Yeah.
Another example, because I know that it's kind of trendy these days for people to say, I wonder if I'm an empath, like as a label, an intuitive empath.
Yeah.
That level of empathy is like, have you ever watched a movie and somebody takes not like big explosions or gun blasts or something? I feel like we're desensitized to that. But say somebody took like a razor blade.
Okay.
And like cut someone's eyelid. Like, would you feel, you know what I mean? And you feel that and you wince away from it. And that's affective empathy.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of the difference. Mm-hmm. In relationship, it's important to have at least cognitive empathy, because blocking empathy creates disconnection. So the reason we even care about empathy in relationship to people is because we want to be connected. We want to be closer to people usually.
Right.
And so it's important to know that you might have unintentionally created a gap that you didn't mean to be there.
Exactly.
Long-winded. Let me put my hair
on. Ain't nothing wrong with it. I'm going to share this on my Facebook page. Share it and share alike.
Share with all your friends.
Mm-hmm. Share with everybody. Let's see. Copy link. So we got empathy separated from sympathy.
Yeah, and I missed some of the comments that came up. I know that there was a couple of pop up.
Well, Mrs. Randy Watson said that empathy is deep. I took a course on it in my master's program.
Wow, an entire course devoted to empathy. Whew, I can't even imagine what all you do in that course.
I know, right? She also said, "What upper, my favorite counselor?"
Okay, okay. You're the neighborhood counselor.
What's up, God damn it, with cheese? What's up, Ayana Jones?
There we go.
And Ashley jumped in, although I know she's in another live probably right now, but
Mm.
yeah. So wait a minute. She said it was a leadership program.
Oh wow. Oh, that is all. See, that's how important empathy is. You want to be a leader? This is stuff you need to know.
Right?
Yes, you have to know how not to create gaps and disconnections with people. We don't like distance. You know, we're social creatures. I was talking about this with a friend earlier about
Mm-hmm.
how social connection has changed so much because of social media and Zoom and FaceTime and we can see each other without really seeing each other. But think about what I said about effective empathy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can see somebody, and I can feel that kind of through the screen, but that's different than sitting in someone's energy.
That is so true. So true. I mean, it's a totally different ball game. And it's much more effective when you're actually around a person.
Man, that's dope that it was a management. I saw that comment. She said something about it being a management for a management program. Just
Uh-huh.
imagine if people who had to be responsible for other people had to take
Man.
that, had to
Right.
take that course and learn how to at least cognitively connect with feeling in someone else. Think about how much happier people would probably be in their jobs.
Man, they would be way more happy. Because it's like, a whole supervisor be a whole empathy blocker.
And create distance in the entire employee
The
community.
whole, yes.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then everybody running around mad.
At the wrong thing. Right.
Dang.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've seen it. I've seen it like so many times.
Yeah. But I feel like sometimes we need to relearn, I guess, connectedness in a different way. We just have to be more creative with it. Like, yeah, this is how we socialize now. So let's figure out how to adapt and be flexible and still learn how to have empathy, even though this screen makes it feel a little more distant. I
Yeah.
remember the anonymity of the internet, like when chat rooms, I'm that old. I remember when chat rooms first started.
Yep.
And you could be like anyone. That meant you could say anything. And
Right.
when you think about the types of things that people chose to say
Yeah.
when they felt like they weren't going to be held accountable by other people.
I know, right? They became keyboard warriors.
Yes. And so now that there's more, like, we understand now that, like, yeah, we could find you. Trust me. Right. Now maybe there's a little bit more reason to learn more about how to not block empathy and, maybe take a moment to think about how other people might feel.
Right. So what are some ways to avoid the empathy blocking?
That's a really good question, because you know what? The answer is just we're going to be done after this. Validation. See you next month.
All right. See y'all.
No, seriously though, because I was talking to my husband about this earlier about competitive empathy. One of the empathy blockers is called one-upping, right? I call it competitive empathy. Like, oh, my back hurts. Oh man, I know my back, my neck, and my knee, and my big toe, and my
They just bypass what you said.
Right. And so I was saying, well, it's not like your pain is any less valid than another person's pain and competition. So we shouldn't be in a suffering competition in the first place.
Okay.
Like, we shouldn't be in competition if we're on a team together anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But it happens. So what do you do if your back hurts too? Like, can you just do, is it like the first person who says their back hurts wins? You know what I mean? Like, because the other person can't empathy block, so you can't say anything. Can't say anything about your back. And so I had to think about that, and I was like, well, if you validate first, like sandwich it, you can still express your feelings. The purpose is not to create the immediate disconnection by discounting or dismissing or invalidating whatever the person just said or whatever feeling they just expressed because you don't understand it or you don't agree with it.
Right.
So validate first. I think that's the easiest answer to that.
When I was younger, that was a situation like I stopped expressing things to my father because every time I did, he didn't validate nothing. I don't. If I had a stomach ache, if I had a headache, if anything, it would turn into a speech, and that's a part of life. And I get headaches all the time too. I mean, just and so I wouldn't say anything anymore.
Disconnection.
If my asthma was bothering, whatever it was, I just kept it to myself because I knew the response I was going to get from him was not going to be any kind of like, well, any kind of like caring type. Yeah. So I just didn't say nothing.
Wow.
Well, men are not always that great with it. I noticed, but I mean, it was like that period with both parents. So.
Now let's go ahead and pull this rabbit out of this hat, right? People, hear me when I say sexism is bad. It is. It is bad on both sides, right? And this is what I mean. There are expectations for all of us that feel almost impossible to achieve. They're just different for men. And so think about the 5 basic emotions. Anybody, if you are close to a man or you are a man right now, what are the 5 basic emotions? 5 human emotions. Ask him right now what the 5 are and see what the first ones are that he names and the ones that he struggles with to identify. And think about what we tell little boys. Like, what feelings do we really even let them have? None. They can't even be overjoyed even. They can't even be too happy.
Isn't that crazy? That is crazy too.
They can be angry, and it's expected for them to be angry.
Yeah.
Right? But like, what about sad? What about afraid? What if you can't express that to anyone? You're not allowed to have that. What do you do when those feelings naturally happen to you? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a disservice. Absolutely. Women naturally are nurturers because we are the ones who carry life and support life. Like, that's part of our job, like reproductively. So of course we have some genetics, some DNA that naturally leads us to be have a more of a capability, I think, for natural empathy. But this is not something that you can't learn, right? Because feelings are feelings and everybody has them. It's just that some people don't have as much practice. You know what I mean? Yes, because there are some women like that as well because they weren't allowed their feelings. So everybody feel. If you don't do anything else, feel and let other people feel what they feel. That is why empathy blockers, it's important to know what they are because we have to let people feel what they feel so they can learn what they need to learn so they can get better at feeling. Yeah. Because that is the thing. You can practice emotions. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm doing a whole series right now on TikTok trying to do these little 60 seconds. Hey, let me hurry up and tell you what a basic emotion is for. And then next week, I'll tell you what to do with it. Because who sits down and teaches you that? Right. You just told me your parents didn't sit you down and teach you that.
They ain't sit me down and teach me nothing. I learned how to rob banks on my own.
Yes, society does condition us differently. Absolutely. You do have to practice. Yeah. You at the least you have to practice allowing yourself to feel, especially if you've been told that these feelings are wrong in some sort of way. Like men aren't supposed to be sad for too long. I don't even understand. Like, what does that even mean? I'm supposed to shut off chemicals in my body, right?
Right.
Telling me I'm supposed to stop a chemical reaction based on a trigger that my brain is trying to help teach me something or keep me safe. Like I am fighting all of nature to fit in, to be right, to not. That's yeah. So empathy blockers. Which one did we say already? One upping.
Yeah, one upping.
The competition. So that's the biggest one. I would think that's number one. Empathy, right? It's not often done it's not always done unintentionally, but it often is. It's like a way to normalize. You know what I mean? Oh, you hurt, I hurt too. Oh, you're tired, me too. It's so the intention might be good. You know, I don't want you to feel by yourself in your pain and your discomfort and but it's invalidating.
Right.
But it's invalidating.
Right. What God damn it with cheese said resistance.
Resistance to emotion?
I don't know. What are you referring to, God damn it with cheese?
To what? Oh, blocking is resistance. Resistance to empathy.
Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you talking about?
Well, while we're waiting for a response, let me hit you with number 2. This is my least favorite empathy blocker. It is called advising or fixing most of the time. Like if you look up empathy blockers, a lot of people have different names for them. You know, they all kind of mean generally the same thing. People like to call them different things. So the advising and fixing, there are these 4 words that, why don't you just? I don't know what it is about those, but that's so invalidating to me personally for somebody to say. Maybe because I'm a therapist and I watch people try and fail and then come back and try harder and do better, and then maybe they'll fail again because it's hard. Like it's hard, you know, to undo patterns that you were taught from your childhood that you thought were a normal way of being, and then now all of a sudden they don't benefit you, and so you have to. That's hard.
Yeah.
And so for somebody to say, why don't you just anything? Like it's just the easiest, like you should be able to do better than you're doing. That's what that infers to me. Why don't you just?
That's messed up.
You should just.
That's kind of messed up though. And I've had that happen. I might even said it before myself.
Oh, I'm sure we all do.
But it's messed up, you know?
Why don't you just? And again, depending on who you talk to, educating can be an empathy blocker. You know, like, oh, I read this book about giving up attachments and it just changed my life. And that's what you should do. You should read that. So like education and you should just, advice fixing kind of go together.
Yeah.
So you see how that could have good intentions.
Yeah, but then, you know, depending on the person, it might come off totally wrong.
Right. It might come like me, where I'm like, wow, don't you think I've tried those things? It's not that easy.
Yeah.
You know, if someone is expressing to you, I'm struggling with this, and your comeback is, well, why don't you just? Well, they just told you that they were struggling, so that they're trying and they're struggling. Right. Listen, this is different from people who just complain and don't do anything about it.
Right.
Why I wanted to differentiate between sympathy and empathy. Because if someone is truly seeking empathy, they're seeking validation. They're seeking a feeling that, you know, what they're feeling is normal or okay, or they're not crazy, or that's usually what they're kind of searching for. At the least, a connection.
Right.
But you saying, why don't you just go read this book? That's just not going to build a very strong connection.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So, goddamn it, what Chi said, yes, emotions, yes.
Yes. Another conversation that I was having, I've been talking about empathy blockers today, because why not? Preparation.
Right.
We're talking about the basic emotions. I named them out, happy, sad, fear, disgust. And I hear, wow, there's only one good one. And I was like, they're all purposeful. Every emotion we have is good in its purpose.
Right.
None of us don't want to feel sad. We don't want to be afraid. We don't want to feel disgusted, but those are things that are keeping us safe, right? Those are things that are us things we need to learn to be better, to grow, so that we can be whole rounded human beings. We wouldn't all have all of those emotions. They're called basic human emotions because around the world, no matter where you live, no matter what the expectations for how you're supposed to act are, everybody from birth, from the time you start making facial expressions, have those emotions.
Right.
They have to have a reason.
I like how one of my favorite DJs said, I've said it in the past, but I realized I was trying to solve their problem. But all they wanted was empathy at that moment.
Beautiful, beautiful insight. And then from then on, once you recognize that, then from then on, you do better. But until someone has that moment of insight, that's why I'm saying it's good that we do this, because a lot of people they don't even know. They don't know that saying these things, because they have good intentions, like I told you, that they could have this effect, that they could be having the opposite result than is intended.
Right.
Right? So, one-upping, advising, fixing, we talked about educating as part of advice. Trying to think of the other ones that I feel like happen. Oh, well, the basic one, cheering up. The positive spin. Like I'm big time on reframe. I teach it as a skill so that you don't stay ruminating and stuck in an emotion. When we're talking about empathy, you don't predict the future, right? So you don't say things like, "Oh, it'll be okay," because you don't know that.
Right. And we do that so much.
Don't be sad. Lily, don't be mad. And it's really, if you think about it, it's kind of a selfish reaction, because I just don't want to see my friend suffer, right?
Yeah,
but it's selfish because now I'm not allowing my friend to have this emotional experience that they need to have to grow through this thing that's happening to them. So it's like they that thing, whatever that thing was, for no reason. Because now they're not getting the lesson, because I was like, I'm going to take your lesson because you being sad makes me feel uncomfortable. And it took me a while.
Moogly.
So cheering up, positive side. Oh, don't think about that. Distraction. Don't think about that. Look at this TikTok. It's funny. It'll make you laugh. You'll be happy. All of that. Empathy blocking.
Damn.
Yeah. Now, let's do the qualifiers. Let's say that your friend has been sad for a while. Like, let's say they broke up with their boyfriend a couple of months ago and they're still just kind of ruminating in it beyond its benefit, right?
Yeah.
It is okay to go to said friend and attempt to pull them out of their funk, or remind them of the good times in the relationship that they can take with them, and then also remind them of the bad stuff that kind of made the relationship end in the first place, and help them process and do that's all fine. I'm talking about situations where people sit down with each other to discuss something, or they're talking about feelings and they want to have a stronger connection, or at the least they don't want to create a disconnection. These are the kinds of things that you would avoid. I have default words for empathizing. When I know that I'm going into a conversation that's going to require empathy, like every day, because I'm a therapist, then I have on deck, like, I still say word. It's a slang term that means, like, I feel where you're coming from. I
still use that one too.
That is hood validation. So I use that one with the appropriate people. Word. Let me tell you, the simple word wow, when used at the right tone, is very powerful for empathizing. You know, like, wow. I hear you. I feel you. I understand. If you don't understand and you're having trouble, help me understand before judging or blocking in any way, because you walked into it with the intention of empathizing. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sat down and said, let me think about how to not block empathy.
Right.
So always you can revert to help me understand if you're struggling to, if you feel like you're struggling to empathize. Now, important to remember, you don't have to go through the same situation. You never have had to have the whatever happened to your friend, to your partner, to your loved one, whatever happened to them that created this feeling. You don't have to go through the exact same thing to have the same feelings. We're talking about connecting basic human emotions. We all know what it's like to be sad. We all know what fear feels like. We all know what it's like to be angry and you don't want to be. So you connect with the emotion.
Right.
And things happen like what happened with us earlier, where our facial expressions were matching. You can even listen to anybody who's ever been offended by this. You'll pick up people's vernacular and their accents if you empathize hard enough with them. You will start to talk like them.
Wow. That's deep. I'm wondering, have I done that?
I bet you have.
But see, I like we were talking about earlier, I probably would be like, oh my God, I can't believe I just, you know what I'm saying?
Because
like
you would think it would be embarrassing. Like,
right, or like I'm making fun of them or something.
And it's a natural form of empathy. Think about people becoming closer and like the need for us to build communities to stay safe, right? Because there were things out in the world when we were first becoming humans, I guess, that were bigger than us, that could take us out. So we had to form groups. That's why we're social creatures. That's why we've evolved these needs for connection like this, right? And so to build these communities, don't you all kind of need the same language, to dress the same, to walk and talk and act the same, to do the same thing? Because that's how I know you belong in my community. So like there have been times where I have developed a Spanish accent. I have done that. I have done that. But I try not to do it too often.
Wow. Man. Mm-mm-mm.
I try to stay focused if it's not somebody that because I have a tendency to empathize with pretty much everyone. It gets on certain people's nerves that I am that way. It's my background in psychology and my understanding of human beings. You know what I mean? I can understand pretty much why anybody would do anything. And so instead of being upset about it, I just naturally kind of empathize. Man, I know, I kind of understand it. I could feel that.
Yeah.
Word, Paulo. Word.
He's so cute.
We're just gonna roll with it.
Would you like to say anything?
How do you feel about empathy blockers?
Oh.
Hey.
Oh.
He is a boy. He is a boy.
Oh. He blocked that question.
Let me check my notes, Lily, to make sure.
Okay.
I haven't missed something obvious. So downplaying. Oh, well, I didn't even do this one. Denial. There's just outright denial. That's not a problem. It's okay. No problem here. It's fine. No problem here.
And that's from somebody coming to you and telling you something?
Now listen. That's an empathy blocker. Very common with parents.
That's mean.
Listen. No, you're not sad. I just saw you laughing with your friends. Don't come here and tell me you're sad now. Oh, you crying? I'm going to give you something to cry about.
My favorite one was, ain't nothing wrong with you.
There you go. Denial. Nothing wrong. That's empathy blocking right there. Nothing wrong. You're fine. Everything's fine. One's common. I don't see that a lot with couples, but I do see that with parents often.
Yeah.
You know.
I've seen it with couples. I've seen it with couples before.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that.
So you gonna tell it or what? Like you've seen denial? Like, no, there's nothing wrong with you.
I mean, that's happened to me before in a relationship. When I'm, if I'm having, that's a good one. Suck it up.
Yes. Yes. Or man up. That's another one. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Or, if I'm going through a certain situation, I've had a person that I was involved with say stuff like, "Oh, that ain't no big deal." Like, what?
Minimizing. Yep.
And I'm like, wait a second.
So calm down. That's not a big deal. Those are super invalidating. I know that being dismissive, like downplaying, is an empathy blocker. Like it's listed as like an empathy blocker. You know what I mean? But it's not that bad. And it's usually, will you sit down, honey? It's usually followed by somebody that had it worse. Right? Another one parents do is reasoning. They do reasoning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you can't be up. You can't. Like, I'm not going to allow you this emotion. You can't be upset about that because those kids didn't mean to do that.
Mm.
Oh, your grandpa just got busy. He did not mean to disappoint you. He had to work and the reasoning. That's an empathy blocker. It's more common I see in like parent-child relationships.
Yeah. It's kind of dismissive.
Yes. Well, most of these, when you really think about them, when we talk about them this way, you can see how they're dismissive. So that's why I'm saying, until you learn this, you don't know it. A lot of the things that I feel like I teach people a lot. Like all of my jobs, I have 3 jobs, and I feel like all of them are teaching pretty much because you didn't know this. And if you would have known this, you would have responded to that probably in a different way.
Right.
And here's why you probably developed that behavior in the first place. Like there's just a lot of teaching and understanding, because that is what I found to be the most powerful thing, is just sitting down and helping people understand why. Like therapists present skills all the time. For example, the free throw breath, my number 1 skill. I give it every first session because it's really powerful. And if you never see me again, at least you have that one, right? A lot of therapists don't explain, why am I telling you to do this, how it works. And I'm all Miss Scientist, and I'm like, so this is what's going on in your body, and this is what it tells your body, and this is what your body does. And then people are like, oh, that makes sense. And they're more invested in doing it because it makes sense to them.
Right.
So we come here every once in a while and we just teach people some stuff that they probably will go, oh yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But that doesn't mean you should have known it. This is not common knowledge. Emotional work is, I wish it was, but it's not common knowledge. A lot of us do not get this education. So yeah, that's my soap.
And we should.
I agree. I feel like prior to high school, matter of fact, I was talking to someone, I told you I've been talking about empathy all day. I was talking to someone today who had started teaching their niece and nephew that they babysit a lot, little kids, how to fight right. And they were using the 4 horsemen that they had learned in therapy. They were like, nope, that's criticism. They gave them names, like, because they're little kids, but they're teaching them already. Like, this is how you do this.
Yeah, that's good.
That's what I feel like. If I teach this person, then maybe they'll teach their kids a better way. And then maybe those kids will grow up and just think it's normal to have sit-down conversations about talking about your feelings with your kids. That's just what you do as a parent. But you have to have the knowledge to be able to teach it.
True.
Right? So just bringing knowledge, Lily, vibing in the D and bringing knowledge. That's what we're doing.
Hey, that's what's up. That's what's up. So, what are some things you can practice to not always use these empathy blockers?
Oh, I would say, like I said earlier, practice your feelings. A lot of us don't really pay attention to our emotions until they get really big or last really long. And emotions are supposed to last 90 seconds. That's how long an emotion is supposed to be there. The problem is that people don't do that because most people don't even know that. Can you imagine the faces that people make when you say, yeah, emotions, how long do you think emotions last? 90 seconds, a minute and a half. That's how long you should feel sad. And I'm like, I'm still mad from them getting my order wrong at Whataburger like 2 years ago. You know, so how is that so emotions last 90 seconds. After that, we start thinking about them and we turn them into moods. If you leave a mood long enough, it'll turn into your attitude. If you leave an attitude long enough, there's your personality. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
pay attention to your emotions, feel them. They're there giving you a message. Emotions are a thermostat. That's why I said, I don't feel like there are bad and good emotions. People enjoy the way happiness feels, but that just means that the thermostat is adjusted right. That's all happy really means is, oh, you got the right temperature setting. What you're doing right now in your life is good. I don't need to adjust anything. And then sadness comes on. It's like, yo, it's getting kind of cold in here. Can you turn up the heat?
Wow.
Anger comes on and it's like, it is too hot. What I was thinking, whew, back comes the air. You know what I mean? So we pay attention, make a decision, and let it go. Just we don't do that.
God damn it. What Cheese said is kind of like, was it a bad day or an emotion that lasted all day?
Oh, nice. Oh, that's a good one. Yes, right? So check this. So emotions are basically neurotransmitters and chemicals and stuff, right? So the same thing happens in your body. Almost the same chemicals are released and your nervous system is triggered the same way to do the same things when you're excited, when you're nervous, when you're angry, when you're scared. Pretty much the same stuff's going on. It's your interpretation of what's happening when your body does that tells you what emotion it is that you're feeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like if I'm standing at the top of a roller coaster, I might be nervous or scared. But if I'm getting ready to go out on the first date with my crush that I've been crushing on for 6 months, I'm probably excited, right? Same thing happening in my body, same chemicals, right? So these same chemicals are mimicked in our endocrine system. So our endocrine system is responsible for hormones. So a mood is hormonal in the fact that now our endocrine system is releasing these same chemicals that give us that feeling, but it eases in slower and it lasts longer. So have you ever been like, why am I still mad about that thing? I'm not mad anymore, really, but I still feel like, like you don't want to smoke. Like, it got to your endocrine system. It got in your hormones. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
So I always thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. Wow. That's dope. That's dope, dopey dope.
I'm finna start telling people that I might have to make a t-shirt where I tell people, is it a mood or did you have a bad day? Because, I don't like to say bad days. I like character building days. Because words matter.
Right.
And every rough day, bad day, hard day you get through, it builds your character because self-efficacy is higher, self-esteem is higher because look what you just made it through. Right?
Right.
Character building day. But are you having a character building day or are you just in a mood that lasted too long? That is crazy. I know people that can ruminate on the same feeling, maybe not the same situation, but the same feeling consistently. And that's what I try to tell people. The direction that your mind is looking is what it's going to find. So, example, you're wake up and you're in a bad mood. For whatever reason, you're in a bad mood. If I asked you about your birthday party, you would probably remember every little thing that didn't really go right, every little glitch that happened, every problem, even if there weren't that many, right?
Right.
Your mind is looking for that mood. Why am I in this mood? There must be something bad. So let me figure out the bad. Then I ask you about your birthday, and so you're like, let me think of all the bad things there. Now, you woke up in a phenomenal mood for whatever reason, and I ask you about your birthday, I'm gonna hear a whole different story. I'm gonna hear how you were everybody was so resilient and got over these little bullshit things that happened. It wasn't really a big deal, and then you had the best time of your life, and it was the best birthday of your whole life.
Yeah.
Because of the mood you're in.
Wow.
Your mood will dictate memories that come up.
Right.
You know, so that's why it's really important to pay attention to your own feelings and maybe pay attention to the feelings of other people.
That's what's up.
Maybe.
Seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes.
Empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another.
Sharing is caring.
4 elements of empathy: see their world, appreciate them as human beings without judgment, understand feelings, communicate understanding.
That's right.
That's what's up.
Yes.
What we talking about next time?
Oh, I already have it figured out. With me and Bo already got it figured out. We already got it figured out. Next time we are talking about what I call the game. And it is about indirect communication. You know, the inability to state your needs directly and clearly.
I love it. I love it. That's needed.
Yes. Yes.
That's
I
very
almost was
needed.
going to try to sneak it in this time, but you know, empathy blockers is important. It's important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you again for coming back.
Thank you for having me.
It's always dope, dopey dope.
To the dopest.
Okay.
I'll be live and I will be back.
Okay. So everybody, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you all. If you came in late, make sure you watch it from the beginning. Share the video if you have an opportunity to. And yeah, we'll let you know when we're coming back again with that next hot topic. And don't go nowhere. Y'all have a great night, okay?
Off topic.